Welcome to Lesson 27 in the C# from Start to Finish course. My name is Tim Corey, and today we're going to finish this tournament tracker. Did you ever think you'd make it? It's been a journey, but all software projects are. It gives you an appreciation for how much work goes into a complicated project, doesn't it? Now, before we get started in this lesson, I do want to assure my paying viewers that there is another lesson coming for you on texting. So it isn't technically the last video for you, but I consider it more of an upgrade rather than a continuation of this course. Anyways, let's finish strong. Now in this video, we want to do basically one thing. We want to complete the tournament. That's the one thing we have yet to do. And so in that, we need to mark the tournament as complete. We need to determine the prize money, who gets what, if there is any. We need to send an email out to everyone saying, hey, the tournament is over and Tim is the winner. And finally, we need to close out of the tournament viewer form. So those are the four things we're going to do today, which means that we're going to do a little bit more of emailing, and we're also going to trigger what's called an event. We're going to create our own event. Now, we've done events before, behind buttons, so a button click event. But this time we're actually going to build our own. So that's going to be fun. So let's get right to it. So I've actually started with this code right here open because I think this is where we're going to start. So we check for every round. And we check to see which round we're currently in. Well, this is a great place to check if the tournament is done. So we're going to tweak this a little bit to let us know not only is what the current round is, but also if the entire tournament is done. Because don't forget, we call this at the very end of our loop right here, before we alert the users, right here. So we call it and say, after we've saved everything for our tournament, go ahead and check to see what the current round is now. So when we finish the last game, we know we're going to call, after we update the values, we know we're going to call this what's the ending round. And so at that point, we want to trigger this end of tournament event. Now I use event there as in a happening, not the specific C# type called event. So essentially this is going to say, hey, you're done, now do something. We're actually going to trigger it right from the check current round. So let's modify this a bit to let us know if we have completed all the rounds. Now, how do we do that? Well, right now, we have a little bit of an inefficient loop. Don't worry, it's not bad. It's, in fact, probably easier this way than writing more code. But notice that if all the winners are marked, we go to the next round. But if all the winners aren't marked, that means that's the current round. But all we do is just go to the next loop, or the next entry in the loop. So we kind of ignore the fact that we already found what the round number is, and we just go on to the next round. So instead what we're going to do is we're going to say else return output. Now, what does this do for us? Well, whenever we find the round where we find one that has a winner that equals null, we return the output, which gives us the same value as before. It's just we return it earlier. But what if every round there's someone marked as a winner? If every matchup someone's marked as a winner, that means the entire tournament is complete. So if we get all the way to the end of this and say, yeah, I didn't find anybody that's not where the entry, for the matchup entry, the winner is not equal to null, or is equal to null. If I didn't find anybody, it's going to exit the for loop, never having hit this else statement. That's how we know the tournament is complete. And in this instance, what we're going to do is call a private static void called complete tournament. And I'll actually have that auto created for me. There we go. Nice and handy. So now this is where we're going to do all of the tournament complete stuff. So the first thing we need to do is we need to actually pass in this model. So let's do that. And I'm not going to make this an extension method. I'm actually going to pass it in. The difference is I don't think I'm going to call this anywhere else. There shouldn't be anywhere else in the application where I say, go ahead and complete this tournament. And I definitely don't want that to leave it hanging out there that you can complete the tournament early. So let's make this the only place that can be called, and it won't make it an extension method. Making an extension method just makes it too easy to tempt you into making it public. So let's just leave it as it is. So now we have a tournament. The first thing you do is say model dot and there should be an active in here, but there's not. So you don't have an active in our model, and that's because we only have that active inside SQL. Notice here for the tournament itself, we have a column called active, but we didn't include it in our model, which means it's not saved in our text file, and we don't pull it back out of our text file or anything else like that. So the question becomes, what do we do about that? And it's actually not that hard an answer to get. What we'll do is we'll come into our iData connection and create one. We'll call it void complete tournament model. And then we have to implement it in both the SQL connector and in the text connector. We can go find that. Complete tournament. So now right here we have a throw new not implemented exception. In our text file connector, what we could do is do the same logic we have in create tournament. Okay, just copy this, paste it in down here, take out the section about the ID and saving the rounds and adding the model. Well, I should go that line. So we still have the add model, but instead of add, I'm going to say Control J here to put my list up, scroll down to remove. So there you go. What this does is it finds all of the tournament files or tournament entries. It removes the one that matches our model, and that saves that file back, which essentially deletes our tournament. It's gone. It's done. So that takes care of the text file side. Now you may say, whoa, 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 whoa. You're deleting that? Sure, why not? It's not deleting the matchups. It's not deleting the matchup entries. It just disconnects them from their tournament file. So you could also, if you wanted to instead, just change the name of this current model, or maybe you make the tournament name start with complete and then put dash in the tournament name. And then you could have your forms filter out anything that starts with complete if you want to. That way you still have it in case you need it, because it is kind of scary deleting data. But that doesn't really matter. It's up to you what you want to do. Just put the logic here. So in this case, I said, for text files, I'm just going to delete it. Now for the SQL connector, I'm going to go to complete tournament. And here's a bit different. So I can flag this entry as having that bit flipped. So the active bit will be set to 0. Now, if we look down here for tournaments, so if we have a tournament insert, let's modify this and see what we have available to us. That sets the active to 1. Now we don't have a tournaments update, so we'll have to create one of those. New store procedure. Let's delete out all of this. And we're going to call this dbo.sp tournaments underscore, let's call this underscore complete. We're not really updating anything, we're just marking it as complete. And we'll only pass in the ID, and that's the tournament ID. Because if this only has one job to complete the tournament, then we don't need to know anything else besides the ID. We'll say update dbo.tournaments set active equals 0, where, don't forget your where clause, remember that updates can be really destructive, where ID equals at ID. And this has to be marked as an int. Forgot about that. So there we go. So now we have our store procedure. I'll run that to actually create it. And now we can paste that name in there for now. And we just need to perform a action like this. And let's grab our using statements first. And then I'll grab my insert statement like so. I'll let's say var in front of p. And now you pass in just one value, the ID, and that will be model.id. And we'll pass it into this stored procedure. Done. So now I can complete the tournament on the SQL side. Because all it's going to say is mark that as a 0 for active. Now, why does that work on SQL side? Well, if you remember, when we have the get all tournaments in the store procedure, we say get all tournaments where active equals 1. Therefore, it's not showing up anymore in our list of tournaments. Essentially, we deleted it, at least as far as the UI is concerned. But in the database, we still have the information. And that allows us to keep things connected, which is good. All right, so moving back to where you were, we can now say, let's call the global config.connection complete tournament for model. So that's our first step done. We completed the tournament. We also need to determine our prize money though. And so we'll need to pull out our prize information. And also our total for how much money we brought in. Now we could break this off into a different method, but I'm going to put it right inside this method. I'll start with an if statement and say if model dot, we're going to find the prizes dot count is greater than 0. Because if we have no prizes, we don't give out any money. Next, I'm going to find out how much money we brought in. So it's a decimal because money is always in decimal. Total income equals, and here's where we need to do a loop through our people in our tournament. So model dot, we have our teams right here, dot count times, and this would be model dot entry fee. And so that takes our total number of teams multiplied by the entry fee, and that gives our total income. So now we know that. Now we need to figure out what each place gets and then who's in that place. And to do that, we first need to know who won and then who is the runner-up. So I'll start with those two places. And that's the only two places we're going to do today, and I'll show you why in a minute. But for now, let's start with that. So we're going to say team model winners equals model dot rounds dot last. So last round dot first dot winner. Now that is confusing. So let's look at what it's doing. And again, this is a link expression. So if you don't want to do something this a little bit tricky, then you can go ahead and just loop through and find the last round and the first entry, which is the only entry. So the last round always only has one matchup. That's a championship. And so what I said was rounds. Now don't forget, rounds is a list of matchup. So the last round in my list is a list of matchup. Now it only has one item in it, but it's still a list. So I said, give me the first in that last round, which is the only one. In that one, give me the winner, because I know that's been marked as a winner. Next, let's do the first runner-up, the loser in that championship game. Team model dot runner-up equals, and we need to grab the same thing again. So model dot rounds dot last dot first, dot, and we grab the entries dot where x equals greater than x dot team competing is not equal to winners dot first dot team competing. Okay, that's an even longer one-line statement. So let's look at this one. We know what the first part does. It gets us this is the actual matchup. So that's our championship game. And I said, you got a list of entries, right? Of course. And there's two entries in there. And that's the winner and the loser. We already know who the winner is. So since you know who the winner is, I can filter this entries list and say, give me the one where the team competing is not the winner. If there's only two teams competing and it's not the winner, it's the runner-up or the loser. So, but that where clause returns a list of matchup entry model. So I need the first one, which is only one, so it returns just the matchup entry model. But I don't need a matchup entry model, I need a team model. So I grab the team competing. And that's where I get my runner-up's value from. Now, if you wanted to, you could grab this value, which is the matchup of the winning round, and put that in a variable, and then you'd more easily get the winner and the runner-up. So you could do that if you want. It would be helpful then to grab the scores. If you want to grab a scores for the email, it's a possibility. But I'm just going to leave it as it is. And now I know what the winner got, or what the winner is, and who the runner-up is. Down here, if there's prizes, I know what the total income is if I have to do a percentage or a dollar amount. So now I'm going to capture just two variables. I'm going to call it decimal winner prize start with 0, and decimal runner-up prize. Now I'm hard coding these in as 2 values because I'm only going to handle 2 prizes. Prize for first place and a prize for second place. Now you may be thinking, now wait a minute, Tim. We've got prizes for any place you want. Yep, we do. This method isn't going to handle all those. It's going to handle the first 2. And if we want, we can go back to our form and limit those. It's much easier to limit than it is to take away limits. So I'm going to handle the first 2, and here's why. Who is the third place team? Now think that one through. We know who the first 2 places are because that's the people who played in the championship round. But third place could either be the team that lost to Team A in the championship for the championship, or the team that lost to Team B. So the previous round had 2 matchups. Those 2 losers didn't go any further. The 2 winners went to the championship. So of those 2 losers, which one's the third place team? Which one's fourth? Do we do it based off of score? That seems reasonable. And so that's probably where I'd go, but that takes a little more of an in-depth application, thought process, method that I want to do at this point, just because that seems like it's an upgrade to our application rather than a requirement for our application to be complete, especially since I don't want to make this video any longer than we have to. So we're going to leave it at these 2, but if you want to go further, they'll have to do some calculations based upon who had a better score ratio, or whatever else you want to do to determine third place. Or maybe say third place is just divided among the 2 losers from the previous round. And if that's the case, cool. You got to deal with fourth place now. What's that? And so, again, it's just something to think through how you line it all up. In this case, I'm just going to have these 2 values, and I'm going to say if, I will say model.prizes.where x equals, don't you love this, these lambda expressions and this link? It's just amazing. So x.place number equals 1. And let's actually put this in a variable instead of putting the if statement. We could put it in the variable, but they'll have to get the information again. So I will say, let's call this the prize model first place prize equals, and there's that first, I'll say Control J, first or default. Now, what first or default does is it says find the first value, but if you don't find one, then put, well, in this case, null into this prize model. If it was an int, then it would be a 0 would be the value. If it was a string, it'd be an empty string. So that's the defaults. Actually, empty string might be null. I'm not positive. Or the default might be null for a string. But you can figure those out. But for models or for any kind of class instance, the default would be null. So now we can say if first place prize is not equal to null, then we have to calculate the value. Now this does seem like a separate method. Private static void, let's make a decimal. And we'll say calculate prize payout. This prize model. Let's call it prize. And we'll pass in also total income. That way we know if it's a percentage, here's how much they get back. And here we're going to say decimal output equals 0 if prize dot amount is greater than 0. Remember, it can be either amount or it can be percentage, but not both. If prize amount is greater than 0, then output equals prize dot prize amount. Else, it must be a percentage. Output equals total income times, I'll put in parens here, prize dot prize percentage times, or I'm sorry, divided by 100. And when I do that, it yells at me. And that's not fun. And it says operator star cannot be applied to operands of type decimal and double. So I'm multiplying a decimal times a double and it goes, yeah, no. Now I could do I believe I can do a conversion here where I'd say, well, this is actually of type decimal, which isn't a wise idea. But you could do that. But here's a problem. This could cause some rounding issues. Now, is it going to be a big deal for us? Probably not. And this whole decimal thing, casting it, not a great idea either. So the first thing I'm going to do is change that to say convert to decimal. And now we're converting this value to a decimal. Now I didn't really explain this, but our prize percentage, say it's 50. 50 is actually not a percentage yet. It's actually 0.5 is the percentage. But we wanted to give round whole numbers to users. So they put in 50, and they actually mean 50%. So we're dividing by 100. So 50 divided by 100 is 0.5. So that gives us a percentage, but we're converting that to decimal. Now we're multiplying it by our other decimal, but that's not really the best way of multiplying decimals. Instead, we say decimal dot multiply. Total income, comma, and our percentage. That way, it actually properly multiplies the two decimals and returns a real decimal. So that's our output now. So it's either the prize amount or it is the actual percentage multiplied by the total income. Return output. Okay. So if the first place prize is not equal to null, then the winner prize equals first place prize dot calculate prize payout based off of the total income. Now we do the same thing with the second place prize. So we'll copy this logic and say second place here. And that's where place number equals 2. Now again, we'll copy this logic and say if second place is not equal to null, then second place prize dot calculate payout for total income goes into the runner-up prize. And that's one of those things where copy and paste might actually bite you. You've got to make sure that you put the correct values in each of those spots. So now we have the prize amounts, if any, and now we can move on to the next portion. And that's where we actually email everyone. So now we're going to create a really simple email body. We're not going to go crazy with this, but essentially we're going to do the same thing as we did up above. Before we go any further, this is yelling at us because we never actually returned output in the scenario where all the rounds were complete and the if was never, or the else was never called. And so in that case, we just need to return output. And actually we'll say output -1. And here's why. Because this advances to the next round, including if we're on the last round. So it'd say the last round +1. We don't want that. So we want to say, well, I understand that you're thinking that that we're not on the last, or that we're past the last round, but we're not. We're on the last round still, even though there's a winner marked. So that takes care of that. But in here for the alert new person, we set this up, and I'm actually going to copy this entirely. At least the part down here where we actually create the subject and body. Let's leave the 2 alone for now. And actually I'll grab the email logic as well. Just grab that. And I'll come down here to where we're actually completing our tournament. And we'll just mark this as saying send email to all tournament. Now again, this is probably best to go in its own method, but I'm going to put it here in line just because it's a little bit quicker and we're only doing it once. So our message, we don't have to worry about competitors being null. We can just create one message. So we can get rid of the if-else statement. Because we know who the winner is. And so we'll complete the subject line by saying in, let's say, the tournament, which would be model dot tournament name, in whatever tournament, and then we'll give the person's name, the winner's name, winner, not winner, prize. We have the winners dot team name has won. Let's put for our header, we can put we have a winner in all caps, an exclamation point. And we'll say here, let's put in a P tag this time. Congratulations, can't spell. Congratulations to our winner on a great tournament. And then down here, before we go any further, oh, and notice that even the append line, even though it was a line, it didn't actually keep those line breaks in the email. So we need to address that. Now, if we use P tags, it's not a problem because that puts our line breaks in for us. So if not, we'd have to include that environment.new line. So that was a little, not really a bug, it's more the fact that I just didn't put my P tags in my email, but that's something to keep note of. So now we have our winner and congratulations, and let's put in a new line or a break. Again, we can do environment.new line, or we can do a br/ to do the HTML break, which seems more consistent. And we can just do, we can do a pen line for all of these. It's nicer to have them in individual lines. When we want to look back through them, it makes a little more sense looking through the string builder. So now we want to say if we have winners, let's Control X these, but in their spot say if, and we'll say winner prize is greater than 0, or runner-up prize is greater than 0. Now, in theory, you could have a second place prize and no first place prize. That's kind of cruel, but you could do it. So if that's the case, what we're going to do, well, let's do this. Let's do one at a time because, like I said, you could have one with the other. In this case, we're going to say body.append line, and we'll say paragraph tag, the winner was, or let's put their actual name, and we'll do the $ in front. You can still do $sign here. So $ winners dot team name will receive. I'll put a $sign for the actual currency, and then our open curly brace and say the what's the prize amount? Winner prize. Winner prize. And let's just close our paragraph tag. We could put more. Again, this is not about the text of the email. It's more about the idea behind the email. So let's copy this and paste it and do the runner-up prize. And the runner-up prize amount. So that's not runner-up prize, it's runner-up. Nope, that's not. That's runner-up. There we go. Gotta get these right. So if the runner-up prize is greater than 0, they're getting something, then we'll say runner-up.team name will receive X dollars. So that takes care of putting that in the email. And then now we need to just close it out by saying, let's do another P tag. Thanks for a great tournament, everyone. And we'll leave the exclamation point there, /P, and we'll sign it tournament tracker. So that has, we can wipe out this so it's not yelling at us. So that now has all the information we need for our body. So we have our subject and our body. What are we going to do about our, who we're going to email it to? Well, we can't email it to each person without having to loop through this a number of times. So let's actually create an overload. So let's go over to our email logic, and we'll create an overload for this. We can do one of two different things. We can either just call this multiple times inside the overload, or we can do it where you pass in a list and it just fills up the two by looping through it internally. I like the idea of looping through it internally, so let's actually copy this signature, because that way you're sending out one email to a whole group of people. Right, copy the signature and change this one. And the reason we're changing this one is because I can make this one more complex and then just have this one call the more complex one. So in this case, we're going to do a list of string called to. And then instead of doing this, we're actually going to surround this. So I say surround with for each string email in to. Add the email. So it's going to loop through each one and add to our to list. But we're going to get more complicated, because I don't want to put everyone's email address in the to line. That means you get an email with, 50 people in that to line. That's just not courteous. really we want to put those in the BCC line. So let's pass in a BCC as well. List of string, we'll call it BCC. And BCC stands for blind carbon copy. So we'll do the same thing as up here. We'll actually copy this. I'll paste it here. For each email in BCC, we're going to say, instead of the to field, we'll come up to the BCC field and add the email. So now anybody in this list gets added here. And if there's nobody in the list, no one gets added. Now up here we have as overload that is our original signature. So how do we call this one from here? Don't copy this code, paste in here with the original logic. Just don't do that. That's duplicate code. You want to not repeat yourself. Don't repeat yourself. Instead, I'm going to call send email. And if this had a return type, I would say return send email, just to pass that value right back through. So send email, and I pass in a list of string. So we could create a new list up here and then pass that in, or we could say right in line, new list of string, and then our curly braces, and say to, close curly braces. That will create a new list of string and put that as the only item in the list. So that's a nice little one-line shortcut when you just need to create a list to put one thing in it to pass it through. Next, we say subject. Actually, our BCC is next. We don't have a BCC, so we'll say new list of string empty. Or we can just say new list of string with our parens actually. And then we say subject and body. And now this method calls this method and just gives it the information in the order it expects. So we'll still do the same thing. It's just that now we have a method that does more. So now we can pass in BCC information as well. And we can pass in lists. So over here, let's create a list that we can pass in. So a list of string called BCC. These are the values we're going to BCC. These are all the email addresses of every person on every team to let them know a tournament is complete. We're going to initially set this to be a new list of string. Now we could probably write some really creative and really rather complicated link statement to get out every email address, but we're not going to do that. Instead, what we'll do is we'll say for each, and we'll start off by saying model.enter teams, and that would be the team model, and we'll call it T. And then for each, T.team members, and that's a person model P. So for each person on each team, bcc.add p.email address. Now, here's the rub. What if they don't have an email address? And that's where we'll surround this with an if statement. If p.emailaddress.length is greater than 0. Now we'll only add email addresses where this actually is a valid email address. And now we're going to pass in the BCC values. Now what should this go to? Well, no one. So we're just going to say new list of string. And then the BCC value, BCC. And now we've emailed every person on every team this email. The final thing we need to do is we need to close out of our tournament. Now don't forget that when this runs, we will have Tournament Viewer open. We know we'll have it open because that's how we score that last matchup, the championship. And so we score that, we want the tournament form to close and take us back to the tournament dashboard where we can select a new tournament or just close the application. Now this is already open because this one stays open the entire time. But how do we tell this form you need to close now because you're done? Well, we could have another check in here after we hit the score button, and after we do everything, we can come back here and then check, hey, is the last round done? That's one way of doing it, but it's not the most efficient. Instead, we're going to create an event on our tournament model. So over here, if we go to tournament model, in here, we're going to create an event. Now, what is an event? Well, it's an alert system. So what happens is you have events and you have subscribers. And inside of this model, we're going to trigger the event saying something happened. Now, no one may be listening, or we may have 10 different places that are all listening. It's up to them. They have to subscribe to that event. If they do, when we hit the point in the code where we say, in this case, the tournament is complete, we're going to fire that event. We're going to say, yep, it's complete. In that case, then what will happen is it will broadcast, hey, I've run. My event has fired. If anyone is a subscriber, they will get that message and will run code. I find it easiest to think about a button. A button has an event called the click event. So when I click down my mouse on a button, that runs code on the button itself. And the button says, something happened. And it says, oh, you clicked on me. Therefore, it fires the button click event. If I'm listening to that button click event, I can run code. And that's where we double click on the button and it creates that method that has the event args and the object sender. That's an event listener or a subscriber. And so it's subscribed to the click event of the button. So let's make this real simple by actually showing what we're going to do. Public event handler, and I have to give it the type. Now this is the type of information I pass back. It could be a Boolean, it could be a string, it could be an int, or it could be even the entire tournament model. In this case, I'm going to pass back the tournament model. Now do I have to? Probably not. But this way at least I know that I'm passing that back. And then I can say on tournament complete. And I put a semicolon. So now this event I'm saying will fire whenever the tournament is complete. So that's it for creating an event. But now I need to create a method that fires this event. So let's create a method down here. We'll call it public void complete tournament. Now its job, as far as we care, the only thing it does is actually fire off that event. And you have to fire this event off inside this class. So we'll call this method once we know the tournament is complete. So we will say, now you could do logging here as well if you wanted to, or other stuff, but we're just going to do the invoking the event or turning it on. So you say on tournament complete. Now this is a newer feature. I believe it's a C# 6 feature where you say question mark. Now here's why. It used to be we'd have to check to see if there's any subscribers. Because if there were no subscribers, we can't actually fire the event. But now we don't have to do that, kind of. We are doing it. But with this question mark, we're saying if it's available, do this. So if it's available, dot invoke. And the first thing you do is pass in the object sender, this. So the sender is whoever is actually sending this message. In this case, the tournament model. Now, I have a type of tournament model. That's a redundancy. So you know what? I don't have to do that. In which case, I could pass this in a string or a date time. Let's pass a date time in. And now, down here, I could say datetime.now. Does it matter? No, we could probably pass in a string, we could pass in a boolean and say complete, whatever. Because we don't care about the event args. Now, you could create an actual event args and put that up here and send other information back through. That's cool. I don't care. I just really don't need to worry about this information. So what this does right now is if you have a subscriber, fire the event. Now we can come back over to our tournament logic, and down here we can say complete tournament by saying model.complete tournament. Done. So now that event will fire when the tournament is complete. So let's close everything else out. And let's open up the code behind for our viewer. Let's actually open the viewer up itself. That way you can just double click on the score button and go right to that code. Again, this is an event. The click event. Notice the sender and the, in this case, event args E, they pass event args. We passed a date time. So we know that this is going to get called somewhere in here, but we don't care. We actually want to come up to, and I probably shouldn't have double clicked on that button. We actually want to come to our constructor, and we're going to say that we want to subscribe to the tournament model. We're going to subscribe to this, and actually let's wait and subscribe to it when it's down here to be cleaner. We're assigning it to a local variable up here, a private variable. So let's go ahead and say tournament dot, and notice down here we have the one lightning bolt. A lightning bolt means event, and the event is on tournament complete. So I'm going to double click on that and say plus equals, because you have to add your listener. And notice here it says press tab to insert. Well, yep. So now it created and scaffolded out that name of the method. Tournament on tournament complete. Perfect. And I can close out of this rename. And now we can fill in what happens when the tournament is complete. Well, it's actually pretty simple. This dot close. Just close the form. That'll send us back to the dashboard. So let's try this out. So we have our tournaments. Let's look at this basketball one. I believe I have some information in here. Unplayed only. The first round is empty. The second round, we don't have matchups. So something went wrong there. No worries. We'll actually go to emailing one. Let's see what that one looks like. All right, we have nobody in the first round. We have one yet not determined for the second round. And maybe it has some bad data in here. We can check that out in a little bit. But instead, let's create a tournament and just create a really simple one. We'll create a finisher tournament. And before I go any further, I'm also going to open up my email client, Papercut, just so I have that sitting here so I can capture any emails that go out. Let's create a $10 entry fee. And we'll do Sue's team, Greg's team, and Mary's team. And we'll create a prize. Let's say place number is 1. We'll say first place, and the prize amount, let's do a prize percentage and say 50%. And then we'll create another prize. We'll create a second place prize. And for this one, we'll actually create a just $10 prize amount. And say create prize. We'll create the tournament. And now we already have our 3 emails. The first one saying, enjoy your round off, because this person, MJ, gets the round off. Now there's a new matchup, Greg's team versus Greg's team, and this one versus Sue's team. So Mary's team gets the round off. So we can say that Sue wins 1-0. And now we have a new round, round 2, Mary's team versus Sue's team. We have the emails to back that up. And now we can say, you know what, let's delete these emails just so we can see the difference. And now we can say, score the last game. And now it closed out. That's great. And we have an email here. And notice it has in the BCC 3 email addresses, 1 for each person, because there's only 1 person per team in these 3 teams. We have a winner. Congratulations, our winner. Mary's team will receive $15. Sue's team will receive $10. Thanks for a great tournament, everyone. So it's completed the tournament. It's closed it out. It's marked who gets what money. And it's all set. We're done. So with that, our tournament tracker is complete. We've got everything in here. Now, do we probably still have some lingering bugs? I would imagine so. In fact, it maybe it's be bad data, but we may also have a bug where we're not showing the second and third round correctly if they're already preloaded. We need to look into that. So, but that may be a bug. We may have other ones, and those only come out through testing. The way to get your application rock solid is to test it over and over, and not just with the standard stuff. Test it with weird things like having no prizes, having prizes but no entry fee, and all that kind of stuff. Try everything you possibly could and see what happens. But for us, we're going to call this application complete. I would love to see what you do with this application. Let me know. And also, if you do find bugs, let us know. And let us know what you did to fix them. That's the important thing. Because this really is a process where you learn more by doing. All right? So that wraps up the entire C# from start to finish course. Now, if you're a paid subscriber, you get one more lesson, and that's when we're going to add texting. But otherwise, we are complete. I appreciate you watching. Thanks for watching. I hope you got a lot out of it. Please let me know if you have any questions or have any issues or you want to see something else. The way I create videos is based upon user feedback. And this is a big one for user feedback. And so I create a big video series because you asked for it. So definitely let me know what you would like to see next. All right. Thanks for watching. As always, I am Tim Corey.